We got three candidates who are running for office. I want to introduce them. Nicole Cole. She's a member of the Spotsylvania County School Board. She is running for Virginia's House of Delegates.
Cole.
Nicole, 66. Nicole?
Yes, sir.
What's
it's
happening?
Great to be here. Hello there.
All good. That's all right then. Joshua Cole. He, of course, second-term delegate. And he, of course, represents the city of Fredericksburg and parts of Stafford and Spotsylvania counties. Give it up for Joshua. All right, folks. And last but certainly not least, Stacey Carroll. Stacey, what's happening?
Hello.
Celebrating her recent court victory after a Stafford County, Virginia Circuit Court judge dismissed a lawsuit to remove her from the November ballot.
Say that again. Dismissed. Clock it.
Frivolous.
So that was fun.
It was absolutely fun. Not really. But seriously, that lawsuit was literally a distraction from us focusing on what really matters. As you guys know, in the court cases, they've been tailing our family or surveilling us since March. Filed the lawsuit this past August, went before the judge, presented the facts, and they dismissed the case without question. We have to ensure that we don't disenfranchise voters. By the time the case was brought to us, ballots had already been printed and certain people had started to cast their vote. So we have to ensure, and we will continue to work, that every voter in the 64th district hears and gets the opportunity to make their voices heard this coming November.
So what is your focus?
My focus is education, specifically the children. In Stafford County, we have nearly 200 kids that are unhoused, specifically homeless, and Stafford County has about 45% of their students that are on free and reduced lunch. Though Stafford County is one of the wealthiest counties, specifically in the entire nation, specifically for black wealth, the average black household in Stafford County is $147,000 to our white counterparts at $135,000. There are pockets of poverty in Stafford County that we have to make sure that no child goes hungry, and when they get inside of the classroom, they can actually focus and do the work so that they can excel in education.
Joshua, you get to go back. What's the goal?
Thank you, Roland. I'm excited to have you back in Fredericksburg in the 65th District. Our focus this year, we absolutely have to focus on housing. Whether we have hungry kids in the schools, we also have unhoused kids in the schools. And so I introduced legislation this past session that would give first-time homebuyers $10,000 in their first-time payment for their homes. We also introduced legislation to protect renters. We are finding out now in the Fredericksburg region, you are going to go find a home. The landlord is charging you first month rent and a security deposit, which is reasonable, but now they're also charging you the final month rent and saying that you have to make 3 times your mortgage or your rent in order to even qualify to get into a home.
Wow.
So we put in legislation that said that is not going to be allowed to happen, and of course our governor vetoed that legislation, so we need a new governor so we can pass it again.
Stacey, Ms. Nicole.
So I am fighting for education as well, but I'm fighting for the money. We need to modernize the funding formula in Virginia so that all of the needs of our students in our schools are funded, not just the staff funding.
So for the folks who don't know, what is the funding formula in the state?
It's a staff-based funding formula. So based off of how many teachers are needed for the students that we have in our schools versus a needs-based student funding formula that looks at what are the needs of our students. We have about 15% across Virginia in our public schools of students who have special education needs. Those needs are more costly than general education needs. And so the same dollar is not going to educate that child as the dollar that's spent on a child getting a general academic education. And so Virginia is behind in the national average of funding our schools. And so we need to move to a better formula to make sure that we have enough staff to educate our kids regardless of their needs, their educational needs, regardless of their background or economic status. And so that's what I want to make sure that we pass, which is something that the Democratic House House of Delegates supported in Virginia, but Again, the governor, being Republican, did not support that level of funding. So I am looking forward to being there and pushing it again with a supportive governor that will make sure that our kids get what they need.
So much of what go ahead. So much of what we're seeing right now, really, when we look at all these elections, are quality of life issues. Obviously, healthcare is a tremendous issue, education as well. But to your point, the housing issue, right now, this is the largest gap we've had in terms of the number of available houses, and folk can't afford it. Also, I was just seeing the story before I even came in here. The average age of a new buyer went from 48 to 56. And so what that says is, and historically you had folks when they entered their 30s and 40s, that's when they became homeowners. But it's become so expensive, they can't become homeowners. And so what more can the state do to impact this here? Because you got, to your point, landlords, you've got developers, you've got all of these folks who want tax incentives to build so-called affordable housing that's really not affordable.
I think one of the major things that we're looking at right now is a lot of red tape on the local level. You have developers who want to come in, and you'll have conversations, and they say, we want to build affordable housing, but by the time they put in the paperwork and it's approved, the cost has already gone up.
But also, you got to define what affordable means, because I cover city government. And the reality is, I saw this firsthand. A lot of developers want to come in, they want to build these so-called mixed-use communities that have all of these shops and restaurants, and they really are appealing to only high-income people. And I literally had to deal with city council members who were all excited about it. I'm like, no, but look at that number. What's the salary range they're trying to target? And in a lot of cases, it wasn't folk who looked like us.
Absolutely. We see in downtown Fredericksburg, Fredericksburg has my heart, right? But you have these condominiums that pop up. You have these townhouses that pop up, which are over $1 million even to get into it. A townhome that's $1 million. We have been discussing legislation for the past 2 years, a piece of legislation called the Yes in God's Backyard, which would allow churches and certain nonprofit organizations to bypass the rezoning aspect in order to build affordable housing or senior housing on their properties. You have large churches who may have large parking lots that are not being fully utilized. They could put affordable housing on those parking lots. Or you have churches who have land. They would love to utilize that land, but they can't because every time they go to the county, it's taken 1 year, 2 years to get approval, and the cost has gone up. So if we're able to give that ability to get rid of some of that red tape, bypass that rezoning aspect in conjunction with what the counties have already approved for, we can get more affordable units. And when I say affordable, I'm not just talking about public housing, but we're talking about workforce housing. If you live in an area, if you work in an area, you should also be able to afford to live in the area. And the reason that housing is so expensive here in Fredericksburg area is because a lot of people work in Washington, D.C. And so people have been moving down here for the past 30, 40 years. People have been moving into the Fredericksburg area, which has caused housing to go up. And now people are being priced out of Fredericksburg and they're going down to Caroline. That's what's going to make it easier for her to win this November, right? So people are going down into Caroline and going down to Louisa, and people are being further away from their jobs when we need affordable units where people work.
Go ahead.
No, so I was going to say, when you say, okay, what's affordable? When I was knocking the door, I had a young lady who is in nursing school at Germanna Community College, living in what's supposed to be an affordable apartment complex in Spotsylvania, and she was paying for a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, $2,300. Now,
2 bed, 1 bath?
2-bedroom.
Girl, you gonna make me cuss in church.
$2,300. Now, I'm a financial advisor, and so I see firsthand where the incomes of our public servants, our young adults, when I say public servants, our teachers, our deputies, when affordable would be 30% or less of their income, of the average income of a public servant in our community. That way, we could make it affordable. And I have a teacher who called me and said, I'm not going to be able to stay employed in Spotsylvania County Public Schools. I'm going to have to go to Stafford and work because my landlord is increasing. We just got a letter and increasing my rent by $300 a month. That is insane when we don't even have a cost of living adjustment for teachers. that their living expenses are going up such that they can't even work in our local communities. So we have to make sure that we make a barrier for what is affordable in our area, and also make sure that the local boards of supervisors are held accountable for managing this and not delaying the process, because I did have developers say to me, what's supposed to be a 2-year project is becoming a 5-year project because they're circumventing the laws that we have on the books that make it take longer, and they have to recoup their investment.
So for the affordable housing, I'll go a little deeper, and I'll say specifically policy, because I know it's not just a policy. How many of y'all are familiar with the Real Page lawsuit? It was a lawsuit filed by the Biden administration that talked a little bit about the price gouging that was happening from realtors, specifically apartment complexes, and how they were astronomically increasing the price for rent for renters in the entire nation. The Biden administration took them on. We need an attorney general here in the state that's going to make sure that doesn't happen to Virginia residents, because that's where it starts. That's where it starts. I want to make $1 too. I want to profit. But we have to be mindful about how we profit, right? And we saw from, let's just say, 2020 to now, we've seen as a renter, we've seen prices go up from 1 month to some 300. I've seen some as much as 700, right? So that's where it starts, right? Then it also includes us collaborating with our local partners to ensure that, again, the first years of my life, I lived in apartment complexes. That's where we start out, right? We create or provide, again, finance major, supply and demand. We have to increase the supply to make sure, without question, people actually can afford and have a place to go. Though I love visiting Caroline County, if I am a young individual that's traveling to and from Washington, D.C., because that's where the job is, then becomes my quality of life and my stressors and other factors that inhibit my ability to just be nice sometimes. If that makes sense, right? If I work an 8-hour shift, I got to go into the office every day. I'm traveling on the highway at least 3 hours of that day. Where's my opportunity to entertain my children, take them to and fro, or even go to grocery store or cook a well-balanced meal at night, right? So I think there are a lot of other things that we can tackle to make sure that from an affordability perspective, we address it so that the whole quality of life of a person or resident of Stafford County, or specifically here in this region, is positively affected.
Role that you see the state playing when it comes to health care. We obviously are seeing the battle on the federal government when it comes to Affordable Care Act subsidies. A lot of people are freaking out because they're seeing those subsidies go away. It's going to be some explosive health care rates that happens. They don't have that Affordable Care Act. That's going to now put stress on the county health system. And now we're back to seeing the problems that we saw pre-ACA.
I was privileged in January. The speaker put together a special emergency committee to deal with the impacts of the federal government in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and I was blessed to be a part of that committee. We traveled all over the state, and what we're already seeing, Roland, is in Southwest Virginia that overwhelmingly voted red. They didn't vote ruby red, they voted maroon, right? There have already been 3 clinics that have closed in Southside Virginia, with a target of 6 hospitals that are slated to be shut down as well in rural parts of the state. And so as a part of that committee, we are trying to determine what are we going to do to save our budget when the impacts of the federal government hit the Commonwealth of Virginia. We know many of you in the room right now are currently furloughed. How many of you ever heard of the state Virginia or state employees being furloughed? You don't, because we're required by our state constitution to produce a balanced budget every 2 years. So when we lose the money from the federal government, regardless of what happens, we're the ones, whoever is our next governor and whoever is in the General Assembly come January, their work is cut out for them, because we have to figure out how to manage all of the pitfalls that this federal government is taking money back, how we have to manage that budget, and how we have to support folks on Medicaid. We did the Medicaid expansion in 2018. Now there's over 500,000 people in the Commonwealth of Virginia who are on Medicaid who are poised to lose their insurance, regardless of what Nappyhead said, that they're not going to lose their insurance. But we have to make sure that these people are keeping their insurance. And that's a responsibility that we as a state government have to do.
And even on the Medicaid, people don't understand that especially with expanded Medicaid, a number of our children are on Medicaid. And that will create a burden for our schools, where there's an expectation that our schools are providing the services that these kids need whether they're getting fed, whether they're getting their medication at school, whether they're getting their speech services, whether they're getting mental health services. All of that burden is put on our public schools. And then again, we're not getting the funding that we need. So that gap for Medicaid for our kids is going to come back on our schools as well. And so, there has to be an answer, and it's not going to be an easy one. We're going to have to be real creative when we get in office.
I would say beyond creative.
Girl, turn your phone off. She's watching the show on her phone. We are live.
It's okay. Hey, girl, hey, we see you. I would say being creative.
I hear everything. Go ahead.
I would say being creative is an understatement. We have to be creative and strategic. Because even before some of the Medicaid cuts that we know are coming, our current Medicaid system has problems. And I say that as a foster mom. I have a foster son that has been on the waiting list to get inside of a specialty provider for the last 9 months. God forbid something happens, we're still waiting to be able to get an appointment and schedule. The appointment just got scheduled for the first week in December, right? So even before the specific cuts that my future colleague was just talking about, we have to be mindful that we have to be strategic. Stacey, what's the definition of being strategic? We know, specifically speaking, that a nurse anesthetist goes through an extensive training from a master's level program to be able to understand how to administer drugs or medicine to those that are currently in surgery. Right now, there's legislation that we could craft to make it easier to have nurse anesthetists stand in the gap in some of the rural hospitals to be able to perform the necessary procedures. Currently, right now, it's required that a medical doctor, someone with an MD, be present to sign off, even if they don't have the credentials to be able to understand, right? So from a legislative perspective, there are things that we can do that make it easier for people that have the credentials and have the training to be able to do their job. Right. We've done it, specifically speaking, the General Assembly did it as it relates to my profession as a CPA, made it easier for young candidates such as myself to come out and become licensed. I think we should do so specifically as it relates to healthcare and making healthcare access easier, specifically for those people that may not want to live in the rural areas, but incentivize those that do and provide it easier for them to be able to support the patients in that area.
All right, that's a good one there. All right. When you've been going door to door, what have the folks been saying to you that they want? What's the most common thing you're hearing?
Well, there's a sore spot in Spotsylvania and Caroline County, but especially in Spotsylvania in education, because we had an extremist board my first 2 years on the board, and they did a lot of things to damage the quality of education that we were trying to deliver in Spotsylvania.
You had one of the Moms for Liberty board?
Yes, absolutely. We had the Burn Books board member on my board, okay, who was the chair of the board. And
burn the books, who couldn't read the book.
Burn the books.
Go ahead.
And they hired a unqualified superintendent who actually did ban 37 books from our school system. The only thing that reversed that was working in the background to identify candidates to run for office in 2023 who were pro-public school candidates and supporting them to win their races so that we could flip the board back to something that was actually to a board who was actually going to work in the best interests of our kids. So we have to make sure that, so at the doors, because our community remembers that. They remember the pain of that. They remember me being the fighter to make sure that I was holding those elected officials who had the majority accountable and worked and started a pact to be able to flip the board so that we could then unban the books. It took, even though we had people coming out complaining about the books being banned, it took flipping the board to have the power to unban the books. So when you have an extremist majority like we have now in the federal government, we have to, as people, come out, yes, and protest. But in Virginia, we have the opportunity this year to vote for people like me, again, Josh Cole and Stacey Carroll, in order to flip these seats so that we can make decisions that will be good for the people in our community.
And again, the point there is, You can't just complain about what they are doing and what needs to happen. The way to impact that, you actually have to use the power of the vote to take them out. When you go door to door, what are the folks telling you?
Absolutely hearing about housing, the cost of housing, but also, as I've been knocking on doors for the past 2 or 3 weeks or so, I've been encountering federal workers who are either furloughed or who were ripped from their positions or living in uncertainty if they're going to work today, will they have a job come tomorrow? And so I think that it's extremely important as we look at the elections that we're facing this year, we have the opportunity to elect a former congresswoman who has served during the former Trump administration, who knows what it means to fight against what he's doing, but then put that together with the experienced legislators that we already have in Richmond who know how to navigate the state system, bringing us together to push back against this second Trump administration, bringing good paying jobs, because the governor released a website, says Virginia has jobs. Yes, Virginia does have jobs, but many of you federal workers who have been let go are overqualified for those jobs and still can't get hired. And so we need someone who's going to bring jobs to the Commonwealth, who are going to be able to say, you may have lost your job as a federal worker. Good, we're going to bring this other job here that you are qualified for that's going to pay you equitably to what you were used to be making, and you're going to still keep your pension. Because many people were losing that when they lost their jobs, and this is what people in the Fredericksburg area are complaining about and are worried about.
So I would have to say I hear more than just when I'm on the doors, because you name it, I'm at the commuter lots at 5:30 in the morning aggravating people. I see people in the grocery stores at the
You where at 5:30 in the morning?
At the commuter lots. Catching people, I talk to Ring cameras.
5:30 in the morning?
Yes. Wherever you are, I am. Yes.
I'm going to sleep at 5:30 in the morning.
No, I'm at 5:30 in the morning. I'm at the commuter lot saying, good morning. Had you would have opened that door and talked to me, we could have did this at 6 p.m., but now we're doing it at 5:30 a.m., right? I've been in every space or place, whether it be the masjid, the mosque, or a church, whether it be white or black, predominantly, just talking to people. And the one thing that I consistently hear is they want to preserve what they've built for generations to come, is one specific thing that I've heard. And whether that be, and specifically speaking, we know the black wealth here in Stafford County, but there's a lot of federal workers and contractors that I've encountered here more recently at home as well. And a lot of them are concerned about how or where the next paycheck or when the next opportunity is going to open up, specifically speaking. I know because when I was offered the opportunity to take a federal job, I declined because the salary offer was less than in the private sector. So I know firsthand that a lot of federal workers took a job decrease for the stability that the federal government offers. So when I hear people, I talk about how they talk to me about how they're changing their current plans, whether it be for vacation or Christmas, they're changing some of their thoughts of where they would go, or they even send their kids to college on how specifically, without just this federal shutdown, just in general for the next 3 years and 2.5 months, how they will adjust their lives to adjust to this current unstable administration.
I'm still stuck on that 5:30 in the morning. You ain't talking to me at 5:30. I'm trying to get on this doggone train to go to sleep.
If you saw me at the commuter lot, raise your hand. Ow!
Bet you were trying, like, girl, I'm trying to take a nap. Don't go on. Go on.
Every space in place. That's where I'm at.
Last question for you before I go to the break. And there's somebody who's watching. Doesn't matter. They could be young, middle-aged. They can be a seasoned saint. And they're like, okay, I hear all of that stuff, but I ain't feeling none of that. What do you say to them? So you rocking your little team. So you got jerseys and everything. Yeah, she got Team Nicole 66. I bet you got jerseys and all kinds of. Yeah, I got you. Okay, we got your own cheerleading squad, huh? Okay. All right. So what would you say to that person who says, "Man, this voting stuff, I just don't feel it. I don't see it. I don't think it matters to me." What do you tell them?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I have seen that this past week on the doors too many times. With African Americans. And, one door knocked, gentleman said, I'm not political. And I said, look, I don't need you to be political. I need you to vote for me so I can be political for you. Because I am going to be the one that is representing this community. And I am running against someone who has been in office for 35 years, okay? And he has not been supporting you or the issues and what's important to you, your family, and our community here in Spotsylvania and Caroline County. And in order for me to be political for you and fight for you to get what you need and what we need in this community, I need you to vote for me. And what people don't understand, and I say this from the dais on school board all the time, is you absolutely need to be political. It only takes, and I've seen it, it only takes one person to come up to the podium in public comment and say, hey, this is something that I want. And we can, as elected officials, be like, okay, Dr. Mitchell, can you get your staff to work on this and bring it back to us as a policy, and then we vote on it. That's it. But when you don't show up, because I have complained over the years that we aren't showing up in school board meetings, and I beg, my sorority sisters know, I beg you to come to school board meetings to let us know what you need and what we need in this community.
What sorority is that?
Alpha Kappa Alpha.
Y'all better wake up. You said you begged them? Did they show up?
But the Deltas did show up.
Of course we did.
I do have some of my I'm not going to lie.
So you saying your sisters didn't show up? Cut them deep.
My sisters show up in different ways.
No, see that's a political answer.
Hey, they're showing up to me now at early voting in Caroline. I've had my sorority sisters come where we have not had people welcoming people at early voting in Caroline for years. I've had sorority sisters and your fraternity, my brothers, my first family.
Oh, we're going to show up, baby.
Yep.
Let's
show up.
First of all, service of all, we shall transcend all. Let's be real clear. Right. Gary.
To show up, to show up and greet people at the polls when they go to vote, because as you said earlier in the earlier panel, people still don't know what district that they're in. People don't know who's on the ballot. And when we have someone there to greet them and say, hey, Nicole Cole, what district are you in? You don't know? Let me help you. If you're in District 66, Nicole Cole is on your ballot and she's going to fight for you, and I need you to vote for her. And they're coming out and they're saying, we voted Cole. So I don't even remember. What was the question?
You answered it. You answered. I got you. Well, first of all, but also I think what we have to explain to people, because again, when you don't know, you don't know.
You got to advocate for yourself.
We got to explain to people that get them to understand that there's no facet of their life that government does not play a role. Right. And so the notion that I'm not political, that's fine, but trust me, government impacts your life. Right. What do you say to that person?
What I think we've all been looking for is people with power to get some sense, and people with sense to get some power. Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, I love the quote. She said, the people who are closest to pain should be the closest to the power. And we're now living in a reality where people are like saying, I'm not concerned about politics. It's too convoluted. You have at it. You do what you're going to do. But this is where I challenge you. You don't care about politics, but your landlord does, and that's why your rent is high. You don't care about politics, but your insurance company does, and that's why your premiums are high. You don't care about politics, but your job does, and that's why your pay is not high. And so we are looking at people who don't care, but politics is involved in everything around you. And we got to be like Shirley Chisholm. If you don't have a seat at the table, you better bring up a folding chair and make a place there. And so we all have been fighting. And we all need to encourage someone else to fight, because if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And it's time out for us being on the menu. We're about to march down to Richmond and flip the executive mansion, expand our majority in the House of Delegates, get that attorney general seat, and we're about to make the menu.
All right, close us out.
And that settles it. The only other thing I would add to what, see, you never come behind a preacher. But the only thing that I would add to what...
Yeah, a little hard to preach at 5:30 in the morning.
And I was up at 4:30 this morning. But no, I find a way to relate to them. I tell them when they look at my credentials now, I look so accomplished and so polished, and I remind them that I started out and I got pregnant when I was a junior in high school. That young man now was a junior at Morehouse College. And I tell them about that because I remind them that I didn't miss a day at school, and it was government programs that paid for him to go to daycare while I still was able to go to high school and finish on time. And I remind them of various ways that the government can help them stand up. And the only way that those programs are fully funded and in effect is if we got the right people in those offices advocating, because I'm a benefit of a generation that advocated prior to me. And though I stand and I will advocate for them, even if they choose not to vote, because I will remind them of all the things that Josh Cole and Nicole Cole just said. But if in case they don't, I still walk away and I still try to remind them that, hey, you look at me now, but I promise you, politics cares about you.
Put your hands together for Nicole, Joshua, Stacey.
Josh Cole became a pastor and delegate to serve his community. That's why Josh is fighting to lower costs for families hurting from inflation and make sure we can all afford quality health care. But Sean Steinway has embraced his MAGA backers who support Trump's mass firing of federal workers and the MAGA plan to ban abortion with no exceptions. We deserve better than Sean Steinway.
I'm Josh Cole, candidate for delegate, and I sponsored this ad.
In the military, I gave orders, and they went a lot further than they do around here. If there's one thing I've learned as a mom and foster parent of more kids than I can count,
investing in their future isn't a choice.
In Richmond, I'll fight for Stafford's fair share for our schools. Smaller class sizes, better teacher pay, and more vocational training.
I'm Stacey Carroll, and I'll fight to get our kids' future in order.
Nicole Cole knows the cornerstone of a successful life starts here. Virginia Public Schools gave Nicole an excellent education. They helped her become a small business owner, family financial planner, mother, and community leader. Now, after 4 years on the Spotsylvania School Board, Nicole is running for delegate to meet the needs of all students. As our delegate, Nicole will fully fund our schools, raise teacher salaries, and help graduating students stay in our communities. Nicole Cole for delegate. For us, for our future.
As a pastor, I hear a lot about trips to the doctor, bills piling up, jobs being lost. So as your delegate, I went to work writing laws that protect families, helping parents care for their disabled children, capping insulin costs, lowering prescription prices, and investing in our police and schools. I'm Josh Cole, and as your delegate, I'm working to keep us strong and safe.